everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite long books. So especially with the winter season coming upon us, I feel like it's a really good time to take a snowy weekend and just snuggle up with a really long book. I feel like long books don't get as much hype on BookTube or just in general because I know I'm guilty of it especially. I try to read shorter books so that I read more of them, but there are some long books out there that I really love and I wanted to take some time to share them with you guys. So all the books on this list are 500 pages or longer. Some people might consider a 500-page book really long, some people might not. I consider it pretty long, so that's what we're gonna go with for this video. I will also say there are two notable omissions from this video. One, I did not include any of the Harry Potter books on this list. It has been so long since I've read them. I want to reread them, and I'm sure that if I ever do this video again, they will pop up. Some of them would definitely fit in here, but I decided to leave them out for now. And the second omission, even though I put it in the thumbnail, is gonna be The Toll by Neal Shusterman. This is a chunker. It's like, I think almost 700 pages long, but I haven't actually gotten to finish it yet. So once I finish it, it will definitely make its way onto this list. I have no doubt about that, but unfortunately I have not read it yet, so I cheated in the thumbnail, but oh well. Before we get started, if you are new here and you're not already, be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. And without further ado, let's get started. So we are going to start with the smallest of the big books and work our way up, and I'm also going by the Goodreads page count, so if you have a different edition of these books, then it might not be exactly what matches up with your edition, but this is just what Goodreads says, which is what we're going with. So the first book I wanted to talk about is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. This is the second book in the Arthur of a Scythe trilogy, and it comes in at 504 pages. Now obviously, since this is the second book in a series, I can't exactly give you a synopsis, but if you have not heard of the Scythe series before, it essentially takes place in this utopian society where we have conquered death, so nothing can naturally kill a person anymore. There's no more diseases, natural disasters, car crashes, anything. So in order to keep the population under control, the society has come up with these people called scythes, who it is their job to kill people, keep the population under control. In the first book, Scythe, we meet our two main characters, Citra and Rowan, and they are both going to become scythe apprentices, and at the end of the novel, one of them will become a full-blown scythe. Now, you guys know how much I adore this series. I talk about it all the time, and The Toll, which I showed a second ago, is my most anticipated release of the year. I absolutely loved Thunderhead, the second book in the series. Usually for me, second books have that second book slump, but this one totally didn't. I enjoyed it even more than Scythe, and I'm so excited to finish up the trilogy. The next book I want to mention is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and this one comes in at 510 pages. This novel follows our main character, Spensa, and Spensa's father was a pilot, and Spensa is looking to follow in his footsteps, but she and her family have had a bad name placed upon them because her father actually abandoned his fleet. So everybody thinks that Spensa is going to be a traitor just like her father, but Spensa is trying to make her own name for herself and prove that she's not going to follow in her father's footsteps and that she is a worthy pilot. Now, this was the second book that I've ever read by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first YA that I've read by him, and I highly enjoyed it. I'm not a huge science fiction reader, but everything science fiction that I do read, I tend to really enjoy, and this one was no different. I love Spensa as a main character. She is such a badass. She knows exactly how to stand up for herself. She has a plan for what she's going to do for her life, and she's not going to let anybody else stand in her way. Doesn't matter to her. She wants to do what she wants to do, and I loved reading about her in this novel. The sequel comes out this month, and I'm really excited for it. Hopefully it'll be just as long, if not longer than this one, but in general, I just love this one and I can't wait to read more from Brandon Sanderson. Next on my list is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this comes in at 516 pages. This novel follows our two young magicians, Cecilia and Marco, and they essentially are placed into this magic competition where only one can win. Now, I will admit it has been a really long time since I've read this novel. I'm definitely due for a reread, but I remember just absolutely loving it. This is one of the most atmospheric books that I've ever read. It completely sucks you into the world and gets you invested in the characters. Like I said, I really need to reread this one, and Erin Morgenstern just had a second book release on November 5th, so I'm looking forward to reading that one as well. Not sure how long that one is, but it might make it onto the next video of this that I do. But either way, this is a classic in the BookTube community. I'm sure a lot of you have already read it, and if you haven't, if you're interested in that whimsical, magical vibe, this is definitely a good one. The next two books that I'm going to talk about are a part of the same series, and first we have The Diviners by Libba Bray, which comes in at 578 pages. and the sequel, Lair of Dreams, also by Libba Bray, which comes in at 613 pages. While we're here, we might as well go ahead and include the third book, Before the Devil Breaks You, which comes in at 552 pages. This series is set in 1920s New York City, and it follows our main character, Evie, who has been sent to live with her uncle after she got into some trouble back home in Ohio, and she actually has a magical ability that she can learn the history of an object just by touching it. So as she joins her uncle in New York City, she finds herself trying to investigate a murder case and hopefully use her powers to solve the case. Along the way, she meets a bunch of friends that have a bunch of different abilities, and they get into a lot more trouble than they bargained for. This is honestly one of the most memorable book series that I have ever experienced. I've listened to the first 3 books on audio. I've talked about them countless times before. They're narrated by January LaVoy, and she does an incredible job of giving an individual voice to every single character. And Libba Bray has done a beautiful job of portraying 1920s New York and the vibe that it gives, and also having each individual character play such an important role in the story together. It is a really large cast, so you would think it would be easy to get everyone confused, but everyone is their own person and they just weave together so well. These stories just keep you on the edge of your seat, and I cannot wait for the next installment. It comes out in January and it comes in above 500 pages as well, so perfect to go on the next installment. Next on my list is Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld, which comes in at 599 pages. So this novel actually is told in 2 different perspectives. So the first perspective that we follow is our main character, Darcy, and she is having her debut novel published. So we get to follow her going through the whole process, moving to New York City, meeting with other authors, and just in general going through what it takes to get your book published. And the second perspective that we follow is Darcy's book itself. So in alternating chapters, we get to experience Darcy's journey and the journey that her own book takes. Now, this is a pretty backlist title. It came out in 2014, and it's probably been about that long ago since I've read it, but I just remember being sucked into the world, and typically whenever I read a story with dual narratives, it can be a little bit jarring, but this one I felt like did a beautiful job of weaving them together. It was really interesting to see the parallel between Darcy's story of her getting published as well as her actual book that she wrote. They were really parallel, and it was interesting to see Darcy versus her main character. Just in general, it was a really well done novel. Like I said, it's been a while since I've read it, but if you're looking for something like that, you never know. Try to pick it up. Next on my list is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, and this comes in at 688 pages. Now this novel has a very, very complex plot, but to be really brief about it, it basically follows 2 sisters, and one sister has always been told her entire life that she is going to be staying in the castle, and the other sister has been told that she is going to go eventually and marry the king of this neighboring country in order to form an alliance. But at the last minute, when the younger daughter comes of age, their father realizes that he simply cannot bear to let her go and winds up making a switch at the last minute, and the daughter's roles are reversed. So from there, you follow a wild ride on the 2 sisters trying to cope with their new roles, trying to get back to one another, and all of the political intrigue that is going on behind the scenes. Now this book and Skyward are the only 2 novels I've ever read from Brandon Sanderson. This one is an adult fantasy, and it's interesting because it is a standalone novel. I think there are plans in the future for it to become a series, but as of right now, it's a standalone and it wraps up nicely that way. But in general, this is definitely one that you need to be invested in. I typically read more than 1 book at a time, but I don't recommend doing that with this novel. You need to put all of your energy into reading it, but once you get into it and once the story hooks you, you just fly right through it. The magic system in this book is really unique and complex and well thought out. The characters are all incredibly dynamic. The plot twists are amazing. The action is there. I can definitely understand why Brandon Sanderson is so revered in the fantasy world, and I cannot wait to read more from him. Next on my list is Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th and final book in the Luna Chronicles series, and it comes in at 827 pages. Now again, this is a backlist series. A lot of people have read and loved it. This is one of my favorite series of all time, but essentially it is a series of 4 different fairy tale retellings. So the first novel, Cinder, is a retelling of Cinderella. The second novel, Scarlet, is about Snow White. The third novel, Cress, is Rapunzel. And this 4th novel, Winter, is about Snow White. This is another series that I really need to do a reread of because it has been probably at least 5 years since I've read these novels, and I just remember loving them, being sucked into the world, being really, really impressed with Marissa Meyer's ability to take these classic stories that we all know and love, keep the elements of them that we enjoy, and yet give them their own unique twists. I really loved all of the characters in this, and I feel like Winter was a magnificent finale to this series. And the last book, the longest book on the list, and the longest book that I have ever read is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas, which comes in at 984 pages. I think the copy that I read was actually like 990 or something like that. Yeah, I was like that. Now this is one that I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with. This is the 7th and final book in the Throne of Glass series, so obviously I cannot say a single word about the plot of this without spoiling it for anybody that hasn't already read it, but this was just an incredible finale to a series that I think is going to be a YA staple for years and years and years to come. I will say the one qualm that I had with this novel is I don't think that there was enough death. Maybe that's a little bit gory, but for the 7th book in a high fantasy series, I wanted more people to die. But regardless, this series has solidified Sarah J Maas's place in the YA space and in the literary space as a whole. There's a reason why so many people have read and loved this series, and even though it is humongous, it flew by. I loved the journey, and who knows, maybe I'll reread them one day in the future. So that is it for some of my favorite long books. Let me know your thoughts on any of these novels in the comments down below, and let me know what the longest book you've ever read is. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, as well as going down and hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!